Have you ever imagined being hunted down by the very people you once fought alongside? Today, we're diving into a story of loyalty, betrayal, and survival, a tale of three men, a legendary warrior, a hunted scout, and a seasoned tracker, all caught in the storm of history. Take a look at this photo. You see three Apache men. Once they stood together hunting down Geronimo in 1886. But fate is cruel, one would become a legend, while the other two would be betrayed and hunted by the very system they served. This isn't just history. This is the brutal reality of the last Apache warriors who refused to surrender, the forgotten Apache scouts. By the late 19th century, the U.S. Army realized that the best way to hunt down the last Apache resistance groups was to use the Apache themselves. Skilled Apache scouts were recruited for their unmatched tracking abilities and survival skills. These men knew the land better than anyone, capable of reading the faintest tracks in the sand, predicting enemy movements, and disappearing into the wilderness with ease. They were the key to ending the Apache Wars. But despite their service, these scouts were seen as traitors, and when the war ended, they were abandoned, hunted as outlaws, stripped of honor, and left to fend for themselves in a world that had no place for them. Among them, two names stood out: Masai and Apache Kid. Let's start with Masai, the ghost warrior who defied capture. Masai, the legendary fugitive Masai, was among the last Apache warriors to experience the full force of the U.S. Army's relentless pursuit. In 1886, as military campaigns reached their climax, Masai was captured and loaded onto a prison train destined for a camp in Florida. Yet for Masai, captivity was never an acceptable fate. As the train rumbled through Missouri, an opportunity presented itself. Alongside Gray Lizard, a determined Tonkawa warrior, Masai executed a daring escape. Under the cloak of night, they pried open the cold iron bars of the train car and leaped into the darkness. Their flight was not an impulsive dash, but the beginning of an arduous journey, spanning more than 200 miles from the open plains of Missouri, through the harsh terrains of the Ozark Mountains to the rugged, forbidding landscapes of New Mexico. During this grueling trek, Masai and Gray Lizard endured conditions that tested the limits of human survival. They traveled under the cover of darkness to evade patrols and hid by day in barren, unforgiving lands. With food scarce and water often a luxury, their survival depended on hunting whatever was available. Small birds, rabbits, and wild roots became their sustenance. In one desperate moment, while traversing the Ozark region, they raided an abandoned mining camp, scavenging for food, discarded weapons, and even precious ammunition. Their journey was not merely a physical struggle, but also a battle against despair and isolation. Every mile they covered deepened their understanding of the land and the inherent spirit of resistance that had defined their people for generations. When they finally reached New Mexico, the two companions were forced to part ways. Gray Lizard vanished into the vast expanse of the Mescalero Apache territory, leaving Masai to continue alone. Over time, Masai transformed into an outlaw, a ghost wandering the mountains, his true fate obscured by legend. Some accounts claim he led small raiding bands that struck swiftly at frontier settlements. Others suggest he became part of a hidden Apache community, living in seclusion, far from the reach of modern civilization. Though his final end remains shrouded in mystery, Masai's legacy endures as a symbol of unyielding defiance and survival against impossible odds. Apache Kid, the vanished legend born around 1860, Apache Kid's early life was steeped in conflict. As a young child, he was captured during a raid by the Yuma tribe, only to be rescued by the U.S. army and raised on the San Carlos Apache Reservation. This crucible of cultural collision between Apache traditions and American military discipline would shape the destiny of Apache Kid. Under the rigorous training of Al Zeber, a battle-hardened scout leader with decades of experience, Apache Kid quickly emerged as one of the finest scouts of his era. Zeber's methods were strict and sometimes harsh, but his mentorship honed Kid's innate abilities, transforming him into a formidable tracker, an expert in guerrilla warfare, and a master of survival in the unforgiving Southwest. His skills were indispensable in the Army's campaigns against notorious Apache leaders like Geronimo. Yet, fate would soon force Apache Kid onto a darker path. In a tragic twist, his father was murdered in an ambush, a loss that struck at the very core of Apache honor. According to the sacred customs of his people, revenge was not merely a personal vendetta, but an inviolable duty to preserve family honor. Determined to uphold this tradition, Apache Kid tracked down his father's killer and exacted his vengeance. The repercussions of that act were swift and severe. Upon his return, a violent confrontation ensued, a chaotic shootout between Apache warriors and U.S.'s soldiers, during which Al Zeber was gravely wounded. Although there was no conclusive evidence linking Apache Kid to the discharge of a weapon during the incident, he was nevertheless condemned to 10 years in prison. Refusing to accept what he saw as an unjust sentence, Apache Kid escaped custody and vanished into the vast, untamed expanses of Arizona and New Mexico. For years, Apache Kid became an elusive phantom. Rumors abounded that he had organized a small band of renegades, launching hit-and-run attacks on military outposts and settlements. Some accounts describe him as surviving multiple ambushes, always slipping away with near miraculous ease. By the 1890s, the U.S. Army officially declared him dead, supposedly killed in an ambush in the Sierra Madre Mountains. Yet, persistent sightings and whispered tales continued to surface. Into the 1920s, there were sporadic reports of an aged, yet deadly Apache fighter, roaming the deserts, a ghost who defied death and time itself. The mystery of Apache Kid's ultimate fate remains unresolved. Did he truly perish in the rugged mountains, or did he retreat into obscurity, living out his days as an outlaw, a living legend of resistance and survival? His story, laden with both heroism and tragedy, continues to fuel debate and captivate imaginations. The Bronco Apaches, the last free warriors. When Geronimo surrendered in 1886, most of the Chiricahua Apache were forcibly exiled to Florida and later to Oklahoma, marking what many saw as the end of an era. Yet, not all Apache accepted captivity. A courageous group chose to remain free, taking up arms against overwhelming odds. These fighters, known as the Bronco Apaches, earned their moniker as wild warriors who defied both American and Mexican authorities. Among the resilient were leaders such as Masai, Tal Dada, Kaya Tene, and several others who refused to bow to subjugation. They retreated into the remote, rugged mountains of Arizona and New Mexico, where they relied on their intimate knowledge of the terrain to launch surprise attacks on supply lines, isolated settlements, and military encampments. Their guerrilla tactics, swift strikes, followed by rapid disappearances, made them a constant thorn in the side of both U.S. and Mexican forces. Their existence was one of perpetual struggle. Outnumbered and often isolated from supplies, these warriors were forced to live off the harsh land, constantly on the move, to avoid capture. Over the years, many of these free Apache fighters were gradually cornered, captured, or killed. Yet, legends persisted that some had vanished into the remote wilderness, surviving in secret for decades. Reports from as late as the 1930s hint at small bands of Apache raiders continuing their guerrilla warfare, a living testament to a defiant spirit that refused to be extinguished. The undying spirit of the Apache Masai, Apache Kid, and the Bronco Apaches were not just warriors of the past, they were symbols of resistance, resilience, and pride. Hunted, betrayed, and forgotten by history, they never stopped fighting not just against their enemies, but against the fate imposed upon them. Even today, their legends endure. In the silent valleys of the Sierra Madre, in the ruins of old army outposts, and in the whispered stories of Apache descendants, their spirits live on. Did Apache Kid truly die in the mountains? Or did he live on as an outlaw, vanishing into history? Did Masai disappear forever? Or does someone still carry his memory? The truth may never be known. But one thing is certain, the spirit of the Apache can never be extinguished.